Welcome back to our program, Hollywood Structured. As some of you already know, our program is designed to help the young people who wish to enter the entertainment field, may it be music, nightclub work, television, theater, or film. It is also designed to help the parents and the educators of those young people to help them understand their wants, their needs, and the pitfalls and the traps they may fall into unless thoroughly acquainted with the inner workings of Hollywood. Today, as our special guest, we have someone who started out wanting to be a lawyer. And she did, in fact, become a lawyer, but wasn't happy with it. She became an agent, and she is now, along with the two partners, Jonathan Sanger and Hillary Rips, the producer, executive producer of Discovery Program. Her name is Jana Sue Memel. Pardon my French accent in saying your name. Hello, Jana.
Hello.
We are actually interviewing her in her office on Sunset Boulevard, and if you hear a little bit of traffic, please excuse us. I would like to speak to you today, however, before Jana shares experiences and her expertise with us. I would like to touch on a subject that I've broached before, but not as thoroughly as I would like to cover it today. I would like to speak to you about workshops. Dramatic classes, comedic classes, commercial classes that have sprung up both in New York and Chicago and Hollywood. Some of them are very good, some of them are not. And it will be up to you to distinguish between the two. Because this country is founded on free enterprise, anybody that comes in this town can take an ad in any of the Hollywood papers like Variety, Dramalog, Hollywood Reporter, and put an ad. Put a shingle saying, I'm a drama coach and I can teach you. And very often is I can teach you and take your money and learn, and you would learn nothing. So how do you find out about good workshops and bad workshops? You can go to the union. The union will give you the name of agents, for example, that are legitimate. I happen to have fallen on this book, which I'm not endorsing, mind you, but I am recommending because I have looked through it, and it lists the unions, the agent, personal and business manager, production companies, casting directors, theater, musical workshops, acting workshop, commercial workshop, photographers, print and a modeling agent. It also lists housing agency for actors who wish to share, and where to get costume, where to get wigs, and etc. It's a book that I am reading myself right now, and I would recommend it to you. At least you can use it as a guide. It is important for you to study, and it is important for you to study the right way. So you make the transition between stage, which you studied probably in school or in colleges, and film and television, which is what you will be working at. They are workshops that are very good, and some of them, most of them, the very good one, do not advertise, maybe once a year to wish everybody Merry Christmas or Happy New Year. You're going to have to investigate. It is important that to belong to a workshop so that you can make friends. You need friends. You have left the family behind, most likely, and you need somebody to nurture you. It is important because those people that are working with you in workshops may be more advanced than you are, and they can open doors for you. They can recommend you to someone. If you have a good drama coach, the drama coach, after a while, when they think that you are ready, may recommend you to an agent, may recommend you to a director. Now, I would like also to add that if you are asked in any dramatic workshop to do anything out of the norm, anything sexual, please walk away. I cannot tell you on the air a horror story that I have. I can tell it to you in private. But something happened in one of the workshops. Needless to say, the workshop is no longer existing at the moment. You must check. You must investigate. It is your life. It is your future. So, I'll go back to my guest now, and we can learn from our guest today what to do and what not to do, the problem that she had, and how she conquered them. Jana, you were born in the city?
Yes, I was born in Los Angeles.
But even though you were born in Los Angeles, you didn't know anything about the movie.
I knew how much they cost.
To make?
To see.
To see. I see. Now, when you were a child in school, were you a good student?
Very good student.
But you had a slight problem. Would you like to talk to...
I was dyslexic. I was diagnosed as a dyslexic at 8½. And it was in a time in which people didn't know what dyslexia was. It was the early 60s. And very few females are and were dyslexic. And beyond that, I had a relatively high IQ, and so they didn't know what to do with me because the only schools and training programs were for children who were retarded. So my parents had to hire a tutor to teach me after school, and the tutor worked at a school for the retarded. And so I used to go into the school when retarded kids were coming out, which was somewhat of a negative message for a small child. And it worked on my dyslexia. I still am a dyslexic, but I learned how to get around the problems involved with it. I was very lucky because I was able to read well. I was not able to write well. If I couldn't read, I think it would be even more difficult for me. But I learned that basically you can conquer any handicap.
There are different kinds of dyslexia.
There's many kinds of dyslexia.
And reading you can do absolutely perfectly.
Well, I think not. I think that I probably read inside out too, but it makes sense to me, so it's perfect for me.
Oh, you can rearrange it once you...
Yeah, I understand what I'm reading, but I have a feeling, I've always had a feeling that I probably do read inside out, but somehow I'm able to process the information.
That's fascinating. Okay, so you're in school, you have dyslexia, and yet you proceed to become... You graduated in what? In history and...
I graduated from college in history and sociology when I was 19. I got 2 BAs, and I graduated from law school. I graduated from college when I was 19? I graduated from law school when I was... Yeah, I graduated from college when I was 19. I graduated from law school when I was 22.
Now, you took most of your exams in school, in college.
Orals.
Orally. And you developed a fantastic memory.
Yeah, I was very lucky. I went to a small private college, and I went to Oxford University in England. And in both places, they either worked on 2 systems. One was orals and one was term papers. And I had great editors. So I would write the papers, and then my mother or my boyfriend would turn them into English. And I did the orals myself.
Now, you go to law school. Do you take an oral exam, or do you take a written exam?
No, in law school I took written exams. They were essay exams, though. And they just got used to me not being able to write well.
Oh, they allowed for that, too?
Yeah.
Very good. Okay, so now you're a lawyer. What do you do?
I wanted to be a lawyer since I was 8. And I think that most girls, many women of my age who wanted to be something, because I think I'm 36, and I'm part of the generation, the first, I think, real generation of a mass of women who went out into the professional workforce. And most of us, I find, at least initially started out doing what our fathers did because we had no role models. And my dad was a lawyer, so I never really knew people did other things. And when I was in law school, and all I ever wanted to do was be a lawyer, so I learned very young that if you got good grades, you got to go to law school, and I never had to worry about anything except getting good grades. And when I was in my first year of law school, I discovered I absolutely hated every second of it. But I was not brought up to be a quitter, so I finished it and I passed the bar, but I knew I wasn't going to be a lawyer. And I didn't know what to be. And I've always loved movies. I've always read many books. For some odd reason, although my family had nothing to do with show business, I started reading Variety on and off when I was 13. And I had a boyfriend who turned to me one day and said, "You should be an agent." And I come from a very sexist family where what the man says rules, and so I thought, here I am as a man telling me what to do with my life. It seems like the rest of my life, so I'll do it. And I...
Did you know what an agent was at the time?
I read about what agents were. The way you become an agent, more often than not, is by starting out as a secretary assistant. And I went around to all the agencies. I only knew one person who had anything to do with show business at all. So I just sort of went around to all the agencies and applied for secretary assistant jobs. And I was relatively stupid and naive because the part of the application where it says education, I'd write 2 BAs, Oxford University, London School of Economics, graduated with honors in law school. I wrote a paper that on a certain arcane small area of law that had been given all over the country, and I write it all down because I thought they wanted to know what my education was. And then I'd go in and interview for the secretary job. And they say, no, we think you're overqualified. The legal department's down the hall. No, I really want to be a secretary trainee. Yeah, we know, but you're over. And I went through this for about 4 or 5 months. And ultimately, my parents met a guy at a party who said he was looking for an assistant, but had no money to pay them. And I went to work for him, and he was a small literary agent. And
you worked for no salary for how many months did you work there?
Just 3 or 4 months. And I found out I read the first script I ever read, and looked at, outside of class, the first legal contracts I'd ever looked at in the entertainment business, and I learned some names, and I started reading The Trades. And a friend of mine knew of a job opening as a secretary at William Morris, and they hired me as a secretary there. And
knowing your background, or did you this time not mention it?
Well, William Morris, no, they knew my background.
They knew your background.
And it's a funny story because every day, and I can't use the name, I was situated at a desk where one of the men who did then and still does now run the agency would have to walk by, and he knew I was waiting for my bar results, and he knew that, and every day he'd walk by the desk and say, "Are you still here?" And I got the message.
Which was?
It was not going to be it was going to be a very long road to be promoted to being an agent there. And so I left and I practiced law for about 9 months. And I hated it as much as I thought I'd hate it. And I had a friend, because by then I'd started meeting people in the business. I had a friend at a medium-sized agency, and she said, well, you're very good with story, because I'd already begun to develop a relationship as being very good with story. So why don't you come and I get all these scripts just sent through the mail. Why don't you come and read them and tell me what you think of them? So I started out doing that, and I got paid $25 a script. And they were all awful. They were all the most awful scripts. And after about 4 weeks, she said, well, do you want to work here? And I said, yeah, I do. And so I started out as sort of a lawyer, literary agent, and then I became a literary agent there. And I stayed there, and then I went to another big agency, and after about 2 years of doing that, I decided that I didn't want to be an agent anymore, that it was a disconnection from the creative process. It was essentially, in many ways, feeling like being a lawyer, because mostly what you did was you negotiated deals. And I don't like negotiating, and I'm actually very bad at it because I don't like people to not like me. So I started doing something that in Hollywood is called development, which means mostly you eat a lot. But what you do is, and talk on the phone. What you do is you're the person who finds the scripts, you read them, you tell whoever's paying you if they're good or bad. Sometimes you get to try and sell them to people at studios, most of whom are your friends. You meet with writers, you work on stories and making the stories better with the writers. And it's a very highly paid, lower level job. It's a very odd job, but I did it for 3 years and I became very, very good at it. And then I found a script that I liked and a friend of mine who was the senior vice president at a studio liked, and we made it as a movie and I produced it.
Can we mention the name?
Oh, it's called Tough Guys.
Okay, so now you're no longer working for an agency. Are you on your own now?
No, I was working for a producer whose name is Joe Wazan at the time.
And then what happened?
The film was done, and Joe and I parted company, and I knew by that time that I didn't want to work at a studio, which for a long time I thought was my ultimate goal. But through the process of making the movie,
did you enjoy becoming a producer?
Yeah, I loved
and
it.
did you decide that's what I want to do from now on?
I'd actually had this fantasy for about 6 years that I wanted to produce a movie by the time I was 30. And we started shooting Tough Guys. We were shooting on my 30th birthday. No, we were shooting on my 31st birthday, but we'd started when I was 30, working on the film. Yeah, I love being a producer. I still love being a producer. I love everything about it.
Now, what happens after that? And when did the Discovery program...
Come into this mess?
Yes.
Jonathan Sanger, who's my partner, is a very famous producer who's now really a director. But he produced a movie called The Elephant Man. He produced a movie called Francis and a number of other movies. And we'd known each other for many years, and we decided to work together. And we ultimately were going to do things just like most people in Hollywood do, which is eat lunch. And we don't like eating lunch that much. So we came up with this idea to make films for people who had experience in the business who didn't have films. For instance, somebody who'd been an actress who wanted to direct. And people in Hollywood would say, well, let's say you have 20 years experience and you know a lot more than some kid coming out of film school about filmmaking, but that kid coming out of film school has a short film to show people, so he can prove, or she can prove, that they can direct. Well, we need you to have a short film too. And a person who's spending all of their time working in the industry doesn't have time to go out and make a short film. So we decided to set up this program where they got the opportunity to make those films.
Now, who sponsors it? You do?
Columbia sponsored it for 2 years. Jonathan and our house, and I and our houses, and my Aunt Lil and Uncle Nate, and a bank in Utah sponsored it for a year. And Showtime sponsored it last year and this year.
I see. How many shows have you done up till now?
29. We're shooting our 28th. We will have done 29 by 2 weeks from
now. Is it something that anybody watching your interview can apply for?
No, it's only for experienced professionals in the business.
How do they apply for it?
They get an application from our office. We have a 3-month application period which ends on this Friday, actually.
Every year?
Every
you
year.
do that every year?
But I don't know how much longer we're going to do this. It takes a lot of energy and time, so this may indeed be our last year. I don't know.
What will you do next then?
Punt. Our company has a lot of films and TV movies that are beginning to take hold. We may do the Discovery program, but if we do, we hope to establish it perhaps as a non-profit foundation or some other thing.
I see. It amazes me that from a dyslexic childhood, you became a literary agent, somebody who reads constantly.
I never had problems with reading. I had problems with writing. I had a really, really bad childhood, and I was alone, or so I read, but reading was always a way to be somewhere else. And so are movies. Movies are the best thing in the world, to be somewhere else, if it's a good movie. Even some of my movies I can see over and over again and go where they are. So it's not a stretch for me. I mean, it's the most logical thing. I was telling somebody, I had a person who works for me pick me up this morning. We have a lot of college students who work for us for free. And we run classes here in the summer, and we do all kinds of things for kids, including exploiting them. So unless you're interested in working 18 hours a day, do not call this number. But I had one of the college kids who's working for me right now pick me up, and she was asking me, what is it about development? What do you like about development? Because she's working in that department right now. And I said, there's no magic in the world like seeing an idea come alive. There is nothing I can't imagine outside having a baby, like seeing a writer come to you with an idea, seeing the idea be born, seeing a whole script, 120 pages with people who were in somebody's mind they're walking around, they're talking, they're wearing clothes, things are happening to them. Then to see it on a screen for the first time, and then to see it on a screen with a room full of people, where you're standing in the back and you're watching the people watching an idea, is the most exciting thing there is in the whole world. And to be able to be a part of it at any level, for me, is incredible.
What is your best quality as far as picking up a script and knowing what's right and what's wrong with it?
I don't think there are rights and wrongs, there are opinions. But as far as, I learn every day. I think that's the other thing about the movie business. It's a business in which you are continually learning. You never know it. There's always something you learn. I've been very lucky this year to work with some very experienced directors. And I've learned more about script from listening to how a director looks at a script. But mostly I think it doesn't make sense. I mean, there's a very high-grossing film, which will remain nameless, that from last year, which involves a baby. You can figure that one out. In which the front door of the mother's apartment building is 2 different doors in 2 different scenes. Things like that, you know, consistency in storytelling.
Now, when you work with those directors, do they bring you the material? Do they bring you the script?
Sometimes they bring us scripts, but more often than not, if they're a famous director, we're trying to get them to do one of our scripts.
I see. And how do you acquire your script?
We beg. Young writers bring us scripts. We go to the agencies and get scripts. We have a lot of young people here with a lot of great ideas. Sometimes it's just an idea that somebody will have come up that we take to somebody. And this is a place that really, it's very un-Hollywood. I mean, if you pan the room for a second, you can see that this office looks awful. There isn't an office in my 2 floors, which are our company, in which 2 people don't share. I share with my partner. Everybody shares here. It's a place that isn't about the frills of Hollywood. It's about getting what you want out of life.
The inner workings?
Yeah, but this place is very rare. I mean, anybody who wants to do anything. I had a secretary for 2 years who told me he wanted to be a writer, so I said, okay, these people need a short written. Why don't you try and write it for them? And he did. And they got the money together, and it got made with some relatively famous actors. And it got him an agent. And then he wanted to write a movie, so I gave him an idea, and I paid him for 3 months, and he never really got it together to write it well. He tried, it just didn't work. So now he's working for me part-time, and he's writing another movie for somebody we're working with. And that's the kind of thing we do here. Somebody says, I want to do, I want to be, and we try and help them do and be. But that's very rare in Hollywood, and you should not come to this town thinking that happens, because more often than not, people are going to trash you, they're going to shut doors in your face. Nobody is interested in doing anything other than getting your labor.
I really admire what you're doing here at the Discovery Program. I think it's sensational.
Well, thank you.
It's sadly needed. And after talking about workshops and how people are being robbed of their money and whatever little knowledge that they have, I think it's fantastic.
Well, thank you.
I would like to brag about that company because I just learned today that they have been nominated for an Oscar.
Well, we won one already, too.
For which show now today?
The first short we did. Oh, today, 1201. It's a short called 1201. And written, it's actually a good story because there are young people out there. The director of this film, who was 32 when he got the opportunity to direct it, read a science fiction story in one of those pulp science fiction magazines when he was 13 years old and clipped it. And when we came up with our program, he made the movie out of that story. So it's just, you know, if you see things you like and they really mean something to you, save them.
I think we have to come up to the 3-minute mark, which is the time in which usually the person address either the young people or the parents or the educators. So the camera is all yours. Teach, educate.
Teach. Hollywood's about dreams. It's all about fantasy. It's not about anything real. I have not had a day off in 3 weeks, including Saturdays and Sundays. Saturday night at 11:30 at night, I was standing on Hollywood Boulevard shooting a scene. This is not anything you think it is about glamour. There is no glamour in this business. You come to this town, when you start out, you work for nothing for 6 months, and then you get a big raise. You get to work for $150 a week. You work 7 days a week, you work 18 hours a day, and if you're lucky, somebody will appreciate your work. If you're coming for the big houses and the big cars and the big meals, it's the wrong place to be. If you're coming because you have a dream, and the dream involves telling a story, there is no door that a persistent, intelligent person cannot get through with hard work. But you have to be persistent, you have to be willing to work hard, you have to be willing to do almost anything in a work-related way to get what you want. It's only a town about who you know, and when you come here, the best thing to do is get to know a lot of other people like you, because it's just like school. You know kids in class, and you all go from class to class to class. Well, Hollywood is just like school. You meet kids all starting out together. One of you gets a job, he brings a friend along, the next one of you gets a job. So the really important things to know are to come here and plan on working really hard. That nothing, no matter what degree you have, how much money your parents have, is beneath you. That nobody's interested in you or what you have to offer, and you have to make them interested in you. And that the best thing to do is make friends, because they'll see you through the dark hours, they'll be there to share the good moments, and they'll help you get what you want out of your career.
Thank you. That was very nice. I would like to thank Jana for sharing with us. It was very beneficial.
And remember, you people out there, please keep watching us, because we keep watching out for you. Thank you. Be well. Till next time.